Nick Farbaugh. I'm John Luciew. We are live on YouTube, so get your questions in the chat for Nick. A lot to talk about after what some are calling sort of an inflection point loss for the Steelers, confirming all of the mediocrity of the past, what is it, 8 years now and running, and just a lot of frustration with the coaching, with the defense not living up to its paycheck, and certainly some milk toast offense. And we'll talk about all of that with Nick. But first of all, Nick, I mean, you are the breakdown guru. You break down a lot of stuff for us on this show. But you kind of got scooped because Tomlin starts off his press conference sort of breaking down that heartbreaking loss in the Windy City of Chicago and really lays it at the blame. Starts off sort of critiquing the special teams, and certainly it wasn't a great game for the special teams. A lot of people are kind of angry on social media, saying that he threw Boswell under the bus, talking about the dirty kickoffs, so to speak, in the field position. And there's still sort of people second guessing why he didn't let Boswell try that field goal at the end of the game. I think it would have been, 63, 64 yards. You were out there, you know the field conditions. You probably watched them in warmups. What's your take on Tomlin's breakdown of that Bears loss and that decision at the end regarding that field goal?
I don't think they were that bad. It was crisp in Chicago, but it wasn't very windy. It wasn't super cold. It was chilly. But for a Chicago late November game, I'd venture it was probably on the warm side. It was the special teams part of this. Waitman had a bad day punting. I think there's no doubt about it. Probably his worst game of the season punting wise. Boswell didn't get a shot to do it. It would have been like a 65, 66 yarder. I mean, that's pretty hardy. So I don't blame him for not going for that, but I also, given how the offense had been looking the last few plays, I kind of it was what fourth and six, 4th and 7. I probably would have rather given that to Boz, honestly, but even still, I don't think that's a very high rate kick. You're not going to get a very good chance at that one. The dirty kickoffs from the Bears kicker. I mean, Gainwell bobbled the one, muffed it, and they got it inside the 9. There's another one, he slow rolled it. I think the Steelers were inside their 20 again. The field position, I thought the Steelers were behind pretty much most of the game between turnovers. The Bears punting game was at a high level, but the Steelers really did not get much out of their return game either. It
Now,
was
let me
not a
ask
great.
you on those dirty kickoffs, is that the Bears kicker kind of pulling off something sly and making those balls hard to handle, or was that just uh, those were mistakes on the part of the Steelers receiver?
I mean, that's the way you do it. You try and kind of, we call them knuckleballs nowadays because that is kind of the idea. Is if you can get the knuckleballs in the landing zone, it acts like a squib, and then it doesn't allow you to build up forward momentum, which is kind of in the favor of the returner now than it was in the previous kickoff rules. And so it's harder when you feel these kickoffs. Even if you feel them like really good on a bounce, you're still coming off your back foot and pushing forward. So you're not really gaining any momentum by getting under it and starting to go forward. So it's tough, but he did a really good job. Cairo Santos did of kind of muddy kicking those and making it hard for Gainwell to field them. So it was an impressive thing. It's almost like you got to be like a shortstop at some point because the ball is going to bounce some which way, and if you get it, then you can maybe get off a good return, but it's hard to do. So it's tough, but it did put the Steelers behind the 8 ball. It certainly wasn't the only thing. I don't think it was the top thing, but I do think Tom was right. The Steelers were behind in the field position component for most of this football game.
All right. And another interesting question that came up at the presser, and I'm going to have to ask you to tell us who got off the question, but it was a pretty detailed schematic question. I know we talk a lot about schematics on this show, but somebody put it to Tomlin about the cover 3 defense against 4 verticals on Sunday. Tomlin said he was not going to peel back the layers of how we function from a schematic standpoint. And then, of course, there were, as the person in the chat notes, Patrick Queen's comments on all of the schematics and lack thereof for the Steelers defense. So schematics. Who got that question off in the presser, and what do you
Yeah.
make of Tomlin's refusal to engage in it?
Yeah, my good friend Chris Carter there getting that off. It's a good question. In my opinion, truly is kind of a malpractice play there. You do not run cover three to trips. You just don't do it. And it is something because it becomes a math problem. When you are in trips like that and you are in cover three, you have the three deep zones, you have the four underneath, but trips, there's a math problem there. You don't have enough players to cover the ground that those guys could run. And certainly when you see four verts, which is what they saw, four verticals, they are in a bind. I've seen people say Eccles played that wrong. No, he didn't. That was the correct thing in a cover three scheme. He is supposed to drop to the flat. Porter could have midpointed a little more, but if he lets it go, he then has to let the guy down the sideline go, and that ball is going to be ripped. And maybe you want that to happen, but even still, it's pretty tough, right? Ramsey, he has two guys, one coming underneath, one coming up this way. So it's just there's not the math numbers don't line up. It's bad schematics. It's bad to put your guys in that situation. Throughout the game, they were running the spot drop cover three that we talked about. This was more of a discussion earlier in the year. In recent weeks, we've kind of talked about how they've run more too high and different things, but they reverted back into their single high stuff this week. A lot of their cover three, I think they ran cover three 44, 45% of the time. Caleb Williams against the Steelers single high looks, their cover one or cover three looks. 172 of 239 passing yards, 2 touchdowns on 113 passer rating. The Steelers ran some quarter stuff. It limited Caleb Williams more because the windows were a little tighter. Caleb Williams wasn't really good in this game, to be quite honest with you. He struggled. He had the bad sack. He was spraying balls all over the field. There were guys open. If Williams was on, he easily could have thrown for 400 yards. This could have been very similar to that Packers game when Jordan Love just marched down the field throwing the ball everywhere. It was very bad schematically. I think of the 2-yard rushing touchdown by Kyle Monungai, and they're in nickel on the 2-yard line. It's 11 personnel, 3 wide receivers, 1 running back, 1 tight end. They're in nickel, and they just get steamrolled up the middle. I mean, what are you expecting? That is a coaching malpractice. This Steelers scheme is just predictable. They don't really mix up a lot of their looks, and they didn't this week. They were too focused on the Bears' ground game. They did a nice job taking away the Bears' ground game. But as we've seen in the past, John, just because the Steelers control the ground game doesn't mean squat this year, actually. We heard that earlier in the year. We just got to stop the run. Just got to stop the run. And instead, we have seen 3 times now this year, the Chargers game, this game, and the Packers game where the Steelers have smashed the run, and they have just been torched through the air by these teams. They are the 27th ranked third down defense in the league. They are the 22nd ranked third and long defense in the league. And the third and long defense, mind you, doesn't take into account all the 4th and 1s that they then give up on 4th down. It has been significant. And the schematics here are just too easy to pick apart. Ben Johnson totally took Terrell Austin and Mike Tomlin to the woodshed. Some of the things that they did in this game by playing country cover 3 against a guy like Ben Johnson was never going to work. They were out leveraged often on the 4th down run that Caleb Williams had. They were completely out leveraged from the snap. That play was a free play right from the jump. I think of the depth they played on some of the plays as well. I think the big one going around that people will point to is the 3rd and 5 right before I think it was like 40 seconds left on that 2-minute drive. They are playing 10 yards back behind the sticks. They are basically giving up the 1st down. Absolutely wild. They did that multiple times. If you go to the film, the safety technique wasn't up to par. Yeah, the coaching in this game defensively was horrible. Right after we had seen promising strides, I'm just saying this. This defense continues to play like it is 20th in scoring. I can go deeper into success rate and things like that. Those metrics I like, but this defense has pitfalls in terms of their personnel, but the coaching is putting them behind the 8 ball every single week, and we are on a collision course right now. If this keeps up, and I mean, we have no reason to believe it's going to drastically change. if the Steelers don't get turnovers or the front doesn't dominate, they're dead. I mean, that's really what this defense has been. And we are on a collision course right now for, I think, a real staff shakeup defensively this offseason if this continues.
Interesting. And there was a sort of a tantalizing and cryptic report from Josina Anderson talking about a certain NFL longtime head coach.
Yeah, I think that's Harbaugh. From what
Oh,
I've
that's
heard.
Harbaugh.
I think it's Harbaugh. I don't think it's
Okay.
Mike. It's not Mike. Yeah.
Just for the audience, it was a cryptic report about a longtime head coach considering wanting a change of scenery. So a lot of Steelers fans on social media were hoping it was Tomlin, but clearly not. Tomlin has always signaled his steadfast, said there's no better job in anywhere, that he's not going anywhere. So no status change there as far as you're concerned. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't think he's looking to exit this situation. Why would he? He's got incredible pull. He's got incredible power in this organization. He's going to get paid regardless. Like, if he gets fired, then he gets the money that he is fired. Why would he resign?
Right.
I don't. That makes no sense.
But you do see some sweeping, some house cleaning underneath him. Then.
Yeah, Terrell Austin, I think, is a fairly obvious one right now. I mean, just look at the pitfalls that they've had defensively, the basics that they have failed to kind of have defensively, schematically. The structure of the defense has just been so flawed. And you look at it and all the moves they made this offseason to improve this defense. I mean, Darius Slay signing has not been a good one. I think you can argue right now the Minka for Ramsey and Jonnu swap is turning out to not be a successful move right now. I mean, there's a lot of things that have not been successful. They came in with the vision of playing man-to-man coverage. They were so confident. I mean, Mike Tomlin called this a historic defense, and it just hasn't happened. So I think we're going to see a pretty significant shakeup on the defensive side, starting with the defensive coordinator, if things continue the way they are.
Interesting. That will be something to watch in the offseason. And then I'll leave the coaching after this point, though, because, the chorus of former Steelers that are really using sharp language, calling out the coaching and the schematics and especially on the defensive side of the football we've been talking about, just grows and grows and grows. Debo, James Harrison was out with the screed. Trey Essex, who I think does some color analyst for the Steelers, he was pretty harsh. I just, because I lived through the the waning years after all the 4 Super Bowls and the glory of the 70s, and Chuck Noll, the Emperor, kind of didn't have great teams in the 80s and the early 90s, giving way finally to Bill Cowher, and totally re-energizing the Steelers, and was just incredible. Those years in the 90s were just incredible. But I never remember people talking, ex-players, the dynasty players, talking about Noel having, bad coaching and bad teams and, that kind of thing. So it's pretty striking just listening to some of these ex-Steelers who were there under Tomlin. A lot of them were. So, just hearing the criticism.
I mean, it is fairly obvious when you watch the film. It's just basics that they don't get right. They don't get personnel deployment right. I mean, and that's an offensive side of the ball thing too. They do not get the personnel deployment they have correct. How many times have we talked about, finally James Pierre plays over Darius Slay, but it was fairly obvious a long time ago Darius Slay wasn't the answer at corner if you're going to play man-to-man. Offensively, we talk all the time about Jonnu Smith, SmackDown versus Farbaugh in Washington, the Jalen Warren stuff. It's all interconnected. They don't even get the layups right, John. That's the issue here. We talk about basic things on this podcast that no other staff in the National Football League does. It's that way. the Steelers' scheme and philosophy in which they operate is just it's a dinosaur. Like that is what it is. It is not a modernized effort. They were modern in the mid 2010s when obviously they were at the tops of the league.
Mm,
But now they're behind the 8 ball, and that's a big reason why you continue to see the same story over and over again. The coaching just falls short.
mm,
It is not a good it is not good coaching. They do not put these players in a way in an effort to maximize who they are. And they certainly do have pitfalls in talent, but also the vision and assembling that talent within this scheme has fallen short. So roster construction, deployment, actually utilizing the personnel correctly, like they just fall short on all of these issues. And it's kind of a unique thing in the league. We don't really see it elsewhere, even on bad coaching staffs.
mm, mm. That is a damning indictment if I've ever heard one. And we could probably talk the whole show about the defense, but I do want to turn to the offense because it was kind of interesting. I thought there was kind of a neat rhythm between Gainwell and Warren, in some of the play calling. But you pointed it out. No passes over the middle of the field. We just abandoned the middle of the field. And the air yards, I mean, apparently we haven't. There was some crazy stat I saw out there on social media that in the month of November they have not had a pass uh, with 20 air yards. They're doing them. It's all yards after the catch. And you called it last week when we said you cannot rely on yards after the catch consistently. You're going to get bogged down. So, what did you make of the offense? And obviously, it was Rudolph under center. And we have a chance, very optimistic that Rodgers would play. And I thought it was really telling watching that video of Rodgers seeing the illegal formation from the sidelines, when they didn't cover up the left tackle, in that one formation. And he's like seeing it. So we know that's one mistake that would not have been made had Rodgers quarterback this game against the Bears. So evaluate all what you saw on offense, including Rudolph. And do you think, I know it's hard to answer, would Rodgers have acquitted himself better in that environment?
I mean, I guess he could have. Here's the thing about the offense. They ran the ball incredibly well, and I thought the run game ideas were really lush and positive. A lot of pulling guards, a lot of getting to the edge, varied run schemes, using Spencer Anderson around the formation. He wasn't just a jumbo tight end, he was an H-back, he was a wing. Skowronek being utilized in different ways, Darnell being utilized on the move. Really fun run game in terms of the scheme and the execution this week. They did a great job on that front, as they should have. You're facing a team without the 3 top inside linebackers, and then in the first quarter, Darnell Washington takes out the fourth one, and then they have 2 healthy inside backers the rest of the game. So I look at it and say, great job on that front. The fake tush push was a great play call in that regard, but the offense still was too predictable in some ways, and it wasn't just the downfield passing. When they ran the ball on first down, they ended up doing pretty well. But here's the thing: they threw the ball 9 times on 1st and 10. On 7 of the ensuing attempts, they ran the football. So very predictable. If you're a defense, you just key in on that. They should have run the ball more, honestly. They didn't run it enough. This game should have had 45, 50 carries. I know that's not a common formula in the NFL nowadays, but when you're facing this specific matchup, I would have been totally okay with that. Rudolph was not very good in this game. I think the Steelers came into this thinking, hey, down the top 2 corners, they're going to have shots down the field. And they did, because Roman Wilson was open a few times. DK had gotten loose a few times. Rudolph's deep ball in this game was just not very good. First interception, he underthrows it to the inside. There's a deep ball on the second to last drive where Wilson stacks the corner and he just throws it out of bounds. If Wilson catches it up the red line, he still might be running. Roman Wilson had a good game when you watch the film, and just you wouldn't be able to tell that by the stat line. The ball just didn't come his way. On that same play, he missed Roman Wilson, though. DK Metcalf, we want to talk about middle of the field, wide open on a crosser. If he catches it in stride, it's a foot race probably to the end zone. Really good play call in that play. I thought Arthur Smith struggled in a few ways. I thought there were monotonous play calls. The play sheet was just not big. It looked like in this game, but the Bears clearly keyed on to some things in the second half that allowed them to survive a little more. I thought obviously that tush push fail, just a weird play in general. It looked like Connor Hayward was almost slow motion.
Yeah.
Um,
But it
but
almost
I
seemed like they blew the whistle too early because then it seemed like he scored it
yeah,
ahead. Yeah.
it seemed very odd. They don't know how to officiate the tush push. I don't know what's going on there. Really, my issues with the offense in this game were one, I didn't think Mason Rudolph played very well. I thought he missed a few throws. I thought he missed some reads. He ran into a sack. He held onto the ball too often otherwise. Obviously, the two turnovers were killer and both were on Mason Rudolph. The illegal formation penalty, I think, the Steelers were in and out of the huddle at times really late into the play clock. I believe they broke the huddle with about 9 seconds on that play. Rudolph had to get Gainwell across the formation because he was lined up on the wrong side of the formation. Initially, he did not then cover up Fautanu. Calvin Austin and Mason Rudolph both telling Gainwell with 3 seconds left on the play clock that he needed to go cover up Fautanu. Obviously, there was not enough time, and thus you get the penalty. I don't think that happens with Rodgers in the game, certainly. So I think that's part of where you can see the fluidity of Rodgers and that working a little better. But the offense was just, I mean, they don't have a downfield passing game. They don't have an intermediate passing game. Some of it is personnel. In this game, I think the quarterback was a significant part of it. They don't, but I mean, you want to talk about that 20 plus air yards. They're 0 of 11 with 3 interceptions when targeting down the field, 20 or more air yards. They don't have a deep passing game, guys. It is just a fact right now. They don't have an explosive passing game, whatever. So it's 13, 15. They had their touchdown drives, 13 play drive, 17 play drive, 15 play drive. Good on them for finishing this week. You're not going to be able to do it against most teams. So the Steelers' offense, it's just not explosive. It has no kind of escort outside of outside of the quick passing game. I thought the Bears played the quick passing game fairly soft. I think that they kind of let the Steelers get going in some respects on that. So it's just a weird mishmash of the Steelers' passing game not really working and not leaning on the run probably enough to where I feel like I've said that a few times this year where they should have run the ball more. They have a good run game. I mean, the Steelers legitimately have a good run game. They rank top 10 in success rate. They rank top 10 in EPA per rush. They just do not run the ball enough, it feels like. This team passes the ball, I think, 56% of the time. That is too high for the personnel that they have. So there's some questions there. The offensive coaching, I mean, I have some questions about it too, but I think the defensive coaching was far worse in this game. But still, this offense is clearly a limited offense. But right now, they are a high floor offense. They're 11th in scoring right now, but even if you remove defensive touchdowns, they'd be 12th. I mean, some of that is field position, some of that is Boswell, but they are kind of punching above their weight in some respects there. But this is clearly, I mean, we all watch it week to week. This isn't a top 12 offense. It's not.
Okay. No, that's a good point. And of course, they are up in scoring, but when your defense is giving away 30 spots every week, it doesn't help you that much. You know what I mean? Even though, like you said, the scoring is definitely up for that offense. Um, the, uh, the two things that were interesting just watching this play out on social media: the frustrating loss for the Steelers in the 1 o'clock window. And then in the 4 o'clock window, the national game was the Cowboys against the Eagles. And of course, we get another dose of George Pickens and seeing him just overperform with the Cowboys to where I mean I think he's the best receiver that they have now. I mean I think he's surpassed CD there. So you had a whole nother chorus of Steeler fans crying in their beer that we traded Pickens for a third rounder and that wow. We didn't have a plan B for the wide receiver number 2. But you pair that with a lot of people talking up what Roman Wilson has been doing. getting open and blocking and doing some nice stuff on film, but you never really see it as a fan because the ball never goes to him. And we know Rodgers is very picky about his targets. Do we see Roman Wilson, who's the hardest working guy on tape apparently, if you watch the all 22s, but he never gets the ball? Do we see him bearing any fruit lately where we start opening things up with him?
You would hope so, but it hasn't come. Whether that is Rodgers and him not connecting on some things. I mean, this week he was fourth. He was back to fourth in wide receiver snaps. Calvin Austin was back up to the wide receiver two role. Ben Skowronek played a lot because of the run game and how scrappy they were. So there were a lot of weird things, but Roman continues to get open. I don't think he's some elite player by any means. I think he has limitations, but there's at least some flashes there I think you can buy yourself into as maybe making a difference. I don't really think he's a wide receiver 2. I think he's more of a wide receiver 3-4 kind of complementary piece. So I don't want to put the savior of the offense on him. I don't really think that's fair to Roman Wilson. But really when you look at it, I just think the Steelers lack the ability to maximize what they have on offense in a lot of ways. I don't think they maximize Jaylen Warren. I don't think they fully maximize kind of what you got in Darnell Washington. I think that's just a theme, and I think Roman Wilson kind of falls into that bucket to a degree. He should be getting crossing routes, off motion, things like that. He did that all the time at Michigan, and they just seldom use that. It doesn't really make much sense to me.
Interesting. Uh, and I just thought that this was because this is one of those weeks where everybody is just raking everything over the coals. Okay, it's one of those losses that sort of just exemplify everything in a microcosm. And Josh Roundtree put something out there looking at the highest paid Steelers players versus the production that we're getting this year. And he just texted down the list. TJ Watt trending downwards, even though he is now the Watt family sack leader. And they made a big to do about that on the broadcast because JJ was broadcasting. Cam Hayward, 1.5 sacks after 8 last year. Alex Highsmith, injuries since the offseason, missed 4 games. Patrick Queen, PFF ranks him 75th of 83 linebackers. Rodgers, PFF ranks him the 32nd best QB in the NFL. Freiermuth lost his starting role, yards per game down 30%, 27th in yards among NFL tight ends. DK Metcalf, 112 total yards and 0 TDs in the last 4 games. Isaac Seumalo, injury, ranked 41st best guard by PFF. Darius Slay lost starting job, 72nd ranked cornerback by PFF. And Jonnu Smith, your favorite, ranked dead last among 38 tight ends by PFF, down 36 yards per game from last year. In other words, these are the highest paid players, and there's the production. And another maybe indictment about how this team was put together. I mean, how do you read that? And do we, do we take anything away from that?
Note, I couldn't give a flip about PFF grades. That's
Okay.
one.
Okay.
Seumalo is playing good this year, and I think has played well and has really come on recently. I think the Steelers I think there's a real argument to actually re-sign Isaac Seumalo this offseason. So I'm totally fine with Seumalo's play. But I'll go down the list. Watt, I mean, I think TJ is not the player he used to be. He's not the peak version. He's still a very good football player, though. Is he $41 million good? I'm not sure about that. But he's commanding a career high of doubles and chips this year, believe it or not. Still a good player and a winning player. So that I think he's a good player. Highsmith, snake bit with injuries, really good player when he's on the field. It's unfortunate he hasn't been on the field more. Cam, I think, is starting to actually finally slow down a little bit. Father Time is undefeated, and I think Cam is starting to feel that. Again, still an elite run defender, though. Maybe he's not a top-tier pass rusher anymore, but I still think a fairly good football player. Queen has been damningly inconsistent. Rodgers, largely the same way. We talk about Freiermuth. He should be starting. Good player. That's personnel deployment. Queen, I think, is being put in a bad spot, just like Peyton Wilson is. The linebackers in this scheme have to somehow defend the run with a nose tackle that gets detonated back 3 to 4 times a game, while also trying to cover ground for 3 people when there's 2 of them. It's tough sometimes in that cover 3 heavy scheme. Metcalf, $33 million per year, I think, is looking pretty hefty. He's a low end one. And the way they're utilizing him is not maximizing him. Slay was always a bad contract. You saw that coming from a mile away. He played in a quarters heavy scheme this year. Asking him to play man to man this year made no sense. Jonnu Smith, that trade should have never been made. We talked about it when it was made. I thought it was a bad fit. It has been a bad fit. So, listen, it's roster construction to a degree, but does everybody think all these players suddenly just started sucking? So what I'm going to tell you is I can go off that list even more. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about guys like Broderick Jones. Hasn't really taken a step. He's now hurt. We'll see how long he's out. But I keep people saying he's made such big strides. Guys, watch the film. This is not a starting level left tackle. He's better than he was last year, but that's because he was unplayable. He hasn't taken a step forward. The wide receiver 2 position is still not filled. And they're not utilizing the running backs correctly. Their star running back is not playing. Has been outsnapped by Kenneth Gainwell in 3 straight games now, by the way. I like Kenny G. He's a good player. Jalen Warren's the best player in this offense. What's going on? The third round pick at running back has barely played all year. Jack Sawyer's a 4th edge. Derek Harmon's been injured and has been good when he's played, but he's been injured. He's now out again with a knee issue. Did everybody think that this is all just roster construction, or did everyone just get worse at the same time? When that happens, John, you go to the C word. We say it again. It's coaching. Coaching. This coaching staff falls short on so many things. They don't put TJ Watt in the best positions to take advantage of the attention he gets and to get him free. They don't put Patrick Queen and Peyton Wilson in the best spots. This is why we're starting to see, and remember how, in the 2010s, everyone's like, you leave the Steelers, that is a sign. Your career is done.
Yes.
Well, now, Kevin Dotson becomes an all-pro guard after leaving Pittsburgh. George Pickens, as mercurial as he is, we knew he was talented. This is how you should be using him. He caught 2 crossing routes all of last year. He's caught 15 this year in Dallas. Crazy stat. And then you look at other things. Devin Bush is playing well in Cleveland. Devin Bush. I think there's just Dante Jackson's having a career year in Los Angeles after you let him walk. I mean, there's examples of this. Guys now leaving and playing better. And I just think about some of the players the Steelers have. How would other teams with high-end OCs utilize Jalen Warren and Darnell Washington and Pat Freiermuth? People tell me, they look at this team and they're like, the talent is just not good enough. And I get it. They have talent pitfalls, the quarterback position, left tackle, wide receiver, corner, safety. It's an issue. Here's the thing. This team has enough talent to be a decent team. They're underachieving right now, guys. These players aren't being maximized to the level they should be. It's coaching. I mean, I keep saying it. It is coaching. Coaching is one of the biggest things in the NFL, and they have fallen short on so many different levels. We've said it all year. But I would love to see someone like Peyton Wilson in another scheme. I think he'd be really good in another really good scheme. But the Steelers are asking him to put the world on his shoulders, and he still had promising moments. Keanu Benton is a good player, and everyone in the first 2 weeks was convinced this guy wasn't good. We've clearly seen he is now, and he has some limitations as a player, but it's very easy to work around those when you have the pass rushing skills he has. It's a mind-numbing team to watch. It really is. They're 6-5, and the bottom's not going to fall out because they have this turnover theory and these high floor ways they go about things, but it is an absolutely maddening, frustrating football team to watch.
That is dealing it. And here we are, Thanksgiving a couple days away. We got to wonder what we have to be thankful for. If you're in the Steelers fandom like I am. So let's set it up. After we have our holiday and give thanks, we have the Bills coming into Acrisure for it's going to be, I guess, the national game on CBS in the 4 o'clock window. So it'll be Tony Romo and Jim Nance calling the game, I would suspect. So the Bills are underachieving. They're beleaguered. Josh Allen, the dual threat coming in. They need a win in the worst way against the Steelers. How do you break down this game coming up on Sunday?
The real thing that sucks about the Steelers' mediocrity this year is that this entire division and really the league,
Yeah,
this AFC conference, is mediocre. This
I know.
Bills team ain't that good, man. Like, you look at the Bills and Josh Allen's incredible, and James Cook and the run game are really playing at a high level, but the pass catchers have been really inconsistent. You look at the run defense for the Bills, not been good. The receivers, though, aren't making plays. The pass pro has been a little rough at times this year. The pass rush has been all over the place, especially with Ed Oliver hurt. Like, this Bills team ain't that good compared to relative kind of other seasons. It's a massively flawed roster. So they should be able to run the ball all over this team. So does that matter? I mean, they ran the ball this last week and still lost. Can the defense find some water here? It's not going to be an easy matchup for them. I think the offense is going to have to put up some points. But this is a winnable game for Pittsburgh, just like the Ravens game is going to be. The Ravens are very flawed. I know they've won 5 straight, but if you watch Baltimore play, that's not the same Baltimore team that we have talked about over the past 4 years, and certainly it's not the same team they saw in January that smashed them on the road. So these are winnable games, and this is probably why I don't think they're going to really be blown out by a team this year. I just don't think they're good enough. They're probably going to be in competition with most of them, and I think they can win these games. So we'll see. It's going to be which team shows up. Really, if the defensive line has a dominating performance, they can beat anybody. So that's kind of where the Steelers' theory is at this point. If the D line can take over the game, they can win.
I have to agree with you. You finally gave us a silver lining as we head into Thanksgiving. The one thing we do have to be thankful for as Steeler fans is this AFC is wide open. So, I mean, if the Steelers can get their act together and if we can get some real coaching, to happen on that defense, and if we can keep with the running game, maybe we'll have something on Sunday. You'll be there, Nick, and I'll be there as a fan in the stands and enjoying a beverage or two, and hoping to not be, having my blood pressure skyrocket
Yep.
again. So we'll see what happens. I just want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving from the Breakdown Podcast and from Nick. And stick with us. We'll be back on Tuesday. We'll be talking about the Bills and talking about those Ravens. Finally, we get the Ravens again. And we'll see what will happen there. But until then, have a great Thanksgiving and go Steelers.